Dan, everyone attending this audio event is going to get a copy of your ebook, but here's my kickoff question. What drove you to write this book, What Happened to Platform Engineering?
Uh, Truth is I was reading a lot of blogs. I was asked to evaluate a couple ebooks, and it occurred to me that platform engineering seemed to be kind of a new concept to people. And I think, and like I say in the ebook, for me, it was just simply it moved from like a software development realm where a company would develop their own platform software to now a cloud native system where you would develop solutions based on open source projects. And so basically I wanted to bring a platform software engineering perspective to what happened to platform engineering, just simply saying it moved from like a software development lifecycle to a cloud native platform IDP solution. And so I just wanted to talk about that journey and basically how it's solved today, which is, and we'll talk about this in IDP. So I like to talk in the ebook about, what are the two architectural components of an IDP that, in my view, are required to do a cloud native platform. And then basically I tie it in at the end to how GitOps, which is the platform, the IDP framework we develop here at NetHopper, implements those architectural foundations and what we add on top of it to what we believe deliver a full cloud provider agnostic as well as Kubernetes agnostic IDP framework.
Great. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. So I'd like to ask both of you, what, in your opinion, what is the definition and what is the significance of platform engineering? Chris, can I start with you?
Sure. Yeah, I would say before we get into platform engineering and Kubernetes and what cloud native means, I would say that what we're trying to achieve here from, as you put it, Steve, a business process outcome perspective is no less than helping companies build value. They're going through, most enterprises, whether they're in the healthcare space, manufacturing, retail, their goal is to survive and thrive, add corporate value, increase stock prices, and they're all doing that by going through a digital transformation. And a big part of that transformation is about building better, faster, more feature-rich applications so that their employees can be more productive and so they can attract, retain, and charge more customers for their products. So it's really about building modern applications, and a surprisingly high number of people are getting that wrong, are failing at that. Something like 79 to 80% of modern application efforts are failing. And that's way too high given the importance of digital transformation and building corporate value. So platform engineering, cloud native platform engineering is the number one way to guarantee success for building modern applications. And it's well covered from Gartner and others. These light bulbs are going off everywhere. Platform engineering is trending because of its promise to optimize the developer experience and accelerate modern application delivery. Something like Puppet has a report every year where they publish the state of platform engineering, and 93% of organizations say that it's a breakthrough step in the right direction for producing their applications. So it's really platform engineering is taking on a new way to do it, and Dan highlights that in his book in a really articulate way. It's worth reading. But I wanted to go over kind of the value of platform engineering before we dive into exactly what it is.
Great. Thanks, Chris. I love that definition and explanation. Dan, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've actually thought a lot about this because in the ebook, I don't actually define platform engineering. So I wanted to be intentional about that. So if you've read anything I've ever written, whether it's a technical spec or an ebook or a white paper or even an invite for a meeting, I always state two things: the purpose and the goal. And I'll state those real quick, but I've thought about this a lot. So what I would define platform engineering as, it's really the discipline of architecting and building an operational framework that enables organizations to build, package, deploy, and observe applications and infrastructure using as much automation as possible. That's how I would define it. And I would say the purpose of platform engineering is to deliver on the cloud native promise of abstracting compute, network, and storage from both the application and the user, which is primarily was ostensibly, I should say, the biggest promise of moving to the cloud. And the goal of platform engineering, in my mind, is to deliver a DevOps framework that allows developers to develop and ops people to operate. And that may sound pretty obvious, but coming from the previous life as a developer and a system architect, where I was now doing things in the ops space and ops teams were trying to develop, it became very frustrating. So in a lot of organizations, there's a lot of friction. And the main reason is they don't have a platform engineering initiative, or if they do, they're not quite sure how to develop their internal developer platform.
Got it. Love that. Let your devs, let your ops, so your devs can dev, or focus on your core applications, not your chore applications like Kubernetes. Great.
Well, that's a great point, Steve, because the other promise of cloud native, not just to abstract compute, network, and storage, but really it was to say you can focus solely on your application. Like, for example, I came out of the mobile networking industry. And I was developing proprietary platform software. They weren't in the platform software business, but it was required in order to support the core applications, which in that context was, protocol level stacks and things like that. And so if you really have a true cloud native initiative, if you don't have a platform engineering strategy and an internal IDP, you're going to create friction in your organization. And one or two things are going to happen. You're either going to develop an esoteric, I hate to say solution, but an internal solution that may be understood by very few. And if they leave the company, you're hosed, or you're going to have a very inefficient environment.
Got it. Yeah, every business is a technology business if you look closely enough. Love that. So for those listeners, I've known Dan for a little over 20 years. It's our third company together. We're like an old married couple. So Chris, can you share with the audience, how did you meet Dan? How did you guys get together for this?
Sure. Actually, I got you slightly beat. I've known Dan, we just talked about it the other day, for 25 years. We met in 1999 at a startup. At the time, if you zoom back in your mind to 99, we were all trying to figure out, a large portion of the startup community was trying to figure out how to build and scale the internet. And Dan and I worked for a startup company competing against Cisco and Alcatel to build what became known as edge routers. And I was a hardware engineer. Dan was a diags engineer. And we were kind of, even back then, we didn't know it at the time. We didn't know we were going to be talking about platform engineering 25 years in the future. But that was kind of our job. It was to build a platform that abstracted away the software so that, the hardware and the systems, so that application folks, the people writing the software for our platform, could write it without thinking about low-level things. We could reduce their cognitive load so that they could focus on building the best routing application in the world. And that's what Dan and I did, and we were in a lab for 10, 12 hours a day together for a long time. So we recently re-engaged about 2.5 years ago, where Dan was working, he's moved well up the chain into a senior architect, principal architect role. And he was working on another platform. And I was talking to him about what NetHopper was doing. And he's like, you know what, that's the exact problem we're running into. So we started working together again.
Love it. Yeah, you guys were just kids back in the day. You were the Doogie Housers of technology.